Yo, what's up guys? We've got another image sent in from Daniel here. So I'll show you through his Instagram and then we'll be trying to recreate 2 images that he has sent us. And remember guys, all links down in the description. Go give him a follow and let him know you found him in this tutorial. So looking at his style, I really like how it's very faded. There's quite a bit of grain in this one, for example. Fade to the blacks, fade to the highlights. Really nice even flatness throughout the image in that one. Pretty vibrant colors. He's got quite the film look. I feel like he strips out a lot of the midtones, so he brightens the midtones, and we'll be doing that with the curves, also bringing up the shadows. There's plenty of yellows in his image and plenty of clarity, giving a real crispness to his shots. Yeah, his use of yellows and deep greens give him quite the film look, also the flatness, and then he uses quite a bit of clarity. Here's one image we're going to be working with, and this one right here for this tutorial, and in another tutorial we'll do this one. So yeah, a bit of grain, bit of flatness, pretty natural tones apart from those yellows that really give it a film look. Lots of greens as well, but they're kept quite deep green and they're not warmed up very much, so that gives it quite a nice film look. So I really like his style, and if you guys do too, you can come over here and check out his preset and you can see all the before and afters that he shows. And yeah, he's got his own tutorial on using them and just how he edits in general, so go check out that wee tutorial there as well. Alright guys, so just before we get into this tutorial achieving Daniel's look, I just want to go over what I've been doing lately. So you guys would have heard I'm working on my course. That's why I'm not doing as many of these videos, and we're closing in on 100 signups. And originally I was going to offer 50% off only to the first 100 people, but we're closing in on that really fast. I was hoping to have the course completely finished before 100 people, but I'm not sure if that will happen. So get in now if you want to save 50%. I'm not sure how much longer that will be on offer. And making this course and doing the YouTube channel, I found myself quite constrained for time. So I thought, how do I offer you guys lots of value, but I'm so constrained with time? And I came up with this concept of reaching out to heaps and heaps of talented creators and getting them to send in their lessons. So instead of me teaching, they're going to be teaching and they're going to be supplying the raw images. So this is just a section within the course, but I plan on making it a huge section. Like, it'd be awesome to get 100 talented photographers submitting their lessons in there. It would just create an amazing resource in the photography industry. Then I'm not limited to the amount of lessons I can provide. So it's a great way to get this course really up to speed, because I can get all these awesome talented people submitting their lessons, and then I can work on other lessons in the course. So I'm really excited about that section of the course. I think we've locked in about 8 talented photographers so far. So if you want to progress quicker, you want more than just these tutorials on YouTube, I go more in depth. I actually explain the tools and my thought process bit by bit, because these tutorials on YouTube, it's kind of scattered and I'm like lightly touching on each concept. I'm not going in depth and teaching in order, and doing a course is just much easier to really set out exactly the order and how important each things are, and you need to know certain things before you can execute other things, especially how the tools affect each other and intertwined and stuff like that. If you guys got any questions, I might be doing a Q&A soon just about this channel, what I'm gonna be doing for future content, the course, just big ideas in general about what I'm trying to achieve, what my future plans, travels, and all sorts. And that's the update for now. Let's get into this tutorial. Right, so let's get into this edit. Here we have the unedited image and then the screenshot from his Instagram. So in terms of settings, we've got 2.8 for a bit of depth of field, 28mm, so pretty wide there, a bit wider than 35, just to get the background and the subject in the shot. And then low ISO because there's plenty of light, and then a pretty quick shutter speed that he has exposed the image correctly with. And then if we quickly come down, he was shooting on a Canon 24-70 2.8L version 2. Okay, so our first steps of editing this image is exposure. Let's up the shadows because I feel like he's got quite a few shadows missing. So let's bring it up. And then when we bring up the shadows, our image looks very washed out. So I'm going to bring back the blacks, whites for a bit more of a pop, and then highlights because we want to keep the detail in those clouds back there. So we'll drop the highlights to about there. Overall exposure, bring that up a lot. We're about good for contrast, so quite bright. Yeah, we're about good. Okay, so one of the main things going on in the style is the use of clarity, I think. So the crispiness and the pop it gives, the texture. So I'm bringing that up quite a bit. And then I'm gonna bring down the dehaze. So that clarity adds quite a grittiness, quite a pop. And then just to soften up the highlights, like I think he keeps this highlights still quite soft. Just gonna bring down the dehaze a bit. Adds like almost more highlights in, kinda. Okay, so then we'll just touch up the vibrance because I think we have our colors pretty vibrant. And then if we want our colors that vibrant, we're gonna have to bring down the saturation. Okay, so not looking too bad. Now I'll just go right through the curve and then I'll explain what I did in the curve and why. Okay, so that's our curve done, and I'll just explain what I'm doing. So this little bit here is the fade, and how much I know to bring it up is if you like zoom in or look at their image, you can see this little fade. It's like a shine on top of the shadows. So if I bring it back down, you can see how it's just very dark in there. And then if we bring it up, if you bring it up a lot, you get this little bit of a shine, and that's kind of how I judge how far up I should bring it. So we get that shine very slightly coming into the dark there, and some people like describe that as the matte look. So that's how I decided where to put that point, and then this point here is just getting the correct amount of shadow there. So how much detail do we want to see? So I just bring it down because I think it is about there. So this midpoint here, I brought it up a bit just because, like I said earlier, I feel like his image misses a lot of shadows. So the shadows are sort of all in this area, mid-tones, creeping into the mid-tones. I wanted all that area of the image to be quite bright. So watch what happens, bring it down. I just wanted all those areas to be slightly brighter, and then there's quite a bit of flatness to the brighter areas. So whites down a little, and then highlights down a little. You can see, like I described the shine with the blacks, you sort of get that with the highlights as well. So just a touch of that. Okay, so we're looking pretty good so far. If I just reset the edit, so that's how far we've come already, looking much more closer. So let's come down to HSL now and just fine tune a few colors. So like I said, pretty much natural tones and just a few adjustments in here. Let's go for a bit more yellow for the skin tones. So 12 there. Greens, as you can see, we are very warm in ours, and we'll just go to a more deeper green, and then blues. So I think there's a few teals, so I think that area of the image is sort of where I'm looking, and I think at the moment we are looking very purple. We're almost on the purple side of our blues, so let's shift it towards a teal, and I think that looks a bit more like his, but just a bit. Let's go with that, and then magenta and purple might not shift. Just looking at the flowers, I think purple could stay there. Magenta, let's just go this direction to match up the flowers, so a bit more of a red rather than purple. And then saturation, so pretty much self-explanatory, just trying to match up what his image is in terms of saturation. Skin tones and her hair is sort of what I'm looking at. Yellows, so just looking at all these areas, them down a little. He has quite a few yellows in his image, especially looking at his other images on his Instagram. He's not heaps in this one, but greens as well, let's just drop them quite a bit. And the blues, so there's actually quite a few blues if you look at like the top of the housing and that there. Let's up the blues, make them pop a little. And then what I noticed about those blues as well, they almost have a shine, maybe a little shine. So luminance, I'll put up just a touch. And then while we're down here in luminance, let's drop the greens a lot to get these nice and deep, and then let's do a little bit of a pop. So this is also going to add to that quite bright feeling he has to his images. Just bringing up the luminance of the yellows, and then purple and magenta, so just the flowers. Just playing around with this to try to spot where it looks like his. Do that, and then magenta, so slightly more brighter areas. Let's go with that. Then coming back to saturation, let's just bring down those purples, magentas. They're a bit strong at the moment. So the problem is when you work with purple and magenta or a lot of these colors is that they affect the same area. So what you want to do is try to find an area that, say, only the purples affect. And I've just zoned in on this little spot right here. This little spot right here is kind of only affected by purples and not so much magenta. It's still affected, but not so much. And then I just try to really get that right for purple, because that's what that little area is affecting. Because it's too hard to do it to say this area right here, because both purple and magenta affect that area a lot. Okay, so we're about good with our colors now, just final touches. No split toning, because again, there's not an obvious split tone going on. Sharpening I'm gonna bring down because we've added in so much clarity, don't need much sharpening as well, otherwise it will come out really crisp. I've kept the profile corrections because that natural vignette looks good anyway, and then just a bit of grain. You can sort of just see it in the image. Just go with a bit more size. Roughness. Okay, so we're about done with our edit now, and now it's just about coming in with filters and just making the image a bit more dynamic, bringing attention to the subject and stuff like that. So what I've actually done down here in the bottom is already placed a filter darkening the bottom of the image. So I forgot to actually show you guys that earlier, that I'd already done that. So as you can see, it just darkens it slightly, and then attention is brought upward towards the subject a bit more. But let's do some other filters. So we've got one right on her face here, just a brush affecting that side of her face, and then all I'm going to do with this one is just bring up exposure just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is just grab a radial filter. So like I've said, he's got a real glow and a lot of brightness in the highlights area. So this is where the sun's coming in, and I'm just going to give a bit more to this area to create quite a glow to the image by bringing up the brightness. And let's do the dehaze to get a bit of a haze coming in. And softening up the edit with the dehaze and the highlights really complements the gritty pop from clarity. It really softens up the image and get a nice balance. And then just another brush up here, so you don't really want to lose detail in the clouds. So maybe he's coming with a brush here, and then what I'm going to do is just bring up the dehaze and make the clouds come out. And then maybe a bit of exposure to them. Yeah, I'll just keep it there. And then just another brush. So right here, this one is affecting the shirt. So I just want to brighten that up a touch as well. Again, just bringing more attention to the subject. I'm just going to come back to the curve here. So I just think we're lacking a bit of darkness, like especially down here where her hair is. So I'm just going to use this to try to match up what it looks like down there. So we're pretty much done with all of our colors and the edit. I'm pretty happy with it. There's just one thing I wasn't too sure of what he did. So I noticed like there's a lot more pink or red tones up here in the highlights. So I was thinking maybe like some red orange split toning, but that just affects like your entire image. And I want it to be more selected to the bright areas up here. So what I thought I'd do, and maybe he has done an S-curve in the red, green and blue channel, and then just given it a touch each extra to the reds up in the highlights. So that's what I'm going to do, just to introduce that tiny bit of red I see up in the whites around here. Yeah. Okay, so I think that just gives that tiny bit of redness. Let's turn this on and off. I think that looks a little more closer, and it sort of adds a little bit more flatness and darkness, because when you bring up a point here, it brings down this area here, and that will slightly add a touch more contrast. So you can see it actually gets a little bit darker down there as well, like down in the shadows. And like around here, just a touch darker there. Okay, so there's our before and after of that one. So pretty happy with that for now. Let's copy all these settings. Yep, copy. Now I have another image of his over here. So let's see how settings go from the previous edit onto this one. So let's paste settings. Okay, so let's broaden it. White balance, I might just cool it down a bit. And then just exposure wise, we just need to, before we actually just go back, that's pretty close. That is pretty close right there. Let's try to get it even closer real quickly. Bringing it down. Contrast. Exposure. Shadows. A bit of brightness. And then like soften up the blacks. We have quite a few blacks. And then just saturation in general, we just need more color. Okay, so straight away, one thing I notice going on in his image is that there's just more flatness to the image. So especially like in the water here, and maybe up in this area, flatter look. So I might just drop the white point a bit and see how that gives a flatness. We start to lose the detail of the clouds. So let's try to bring down the highlights, and you can see how it sort of dims this area. So I might just do that a bit and then bring down the whites as well. Okay, so that just adds that little bit of flatness. Let's come down, let's get rid of the grain or drop it quite a bit. Let's crop it. Let's go 4x5 and then let's go back into it again and then straighten our horizon a touch. Let's come back. One very obvious thing is the greens in our image aren't so bright, so let's go to luminance, and we did deepen them a lot, but let's bring it up. Let's run with that. Our oranges, it could be a few more oranges. His ones look extra dark, so might drop the luminance for those. And then I'm not going to spend long on this one, maybe a little less grain. And then if I just come up, I'm just going to do a filter. So if I grab this and brush over the mountains and the water here, the reflection, I just want to bring out this area a bit more. It just has so much more vibrance and saturation over in his one. So I'm just going to go dehaze. And that's just going to bring out way more of the mountain there. I could quickly brush over the clouds there too. I'll bring out just a touch more of them. Might actually go a bit more dehaze. There we go. I'll just leave it there, guys. Pretty happy with that one. Won't spend too long on this one because it's already long enough, but that's it for this edit.